to daddy.
Yeah.
Most people know what DNA is. A DNA can set a man free or it can convict a man or a woman. You know, DNA is our makeup. They can take your skin cells, they can take your fingernails, they can take your saliva, they can take your blood, they can take any part that you touch, your sweat, and they can tell you if you wore that outfit or if you were the ones who committed a crime or if you were innocent of that crime. Our DNA is also spiritual, because the Bible tells us that everything in the physical is also in the spiritual. So we have spiritual DNA as well as we have physical DNA. Your physical DNA would take your parents, your mother and your father, and it would combine that DNA together that made you, and you would have your own unique DNA out of that. And they can tell you if you're a brother or sister or cousin or if you're that person. We've advanced that much in technology. But have we advanced that much in the knowledge of God? I would like to talk to you today about good sons and bad sons, about good fathers and bad fathers. You know, as a parent, I've always taught my children what was right and wrong. I've always taught my children that there's certain things that you can do that gives you good consequences, and other things that you do are devastating because the consequences can land you even in prison. Yesterday was my birthday, and I spent my birthday with my brother, half of my birthday with my brother in Hunt Prison. A lot of you know the story that my brother's in prison, and if my birthday falls on a weekend, I always go visit him because it's the only time that he'll get to enjoy that day with me, and I'll get to enjoy it with him. When there's something major happens in my life, I run and I see him. And I sit down. There's times I've laughed with him, and there's times that I just cried because my heart was so heavy. I used to be a drug dealer. My brother used to be a drug dealer. He got saved, I got saved.
Amen.
He became a pastor, I became a pastor. We had the same DNA. Physically, we had the same, but also spiritually, we had the same. Since then, I've led my mother to the Lord. I've led a couple of sisters to the Lord, and I'm still believing in a brother that's an alcoholic to come to the Lord. Because God didn't give up on me, I'm not giving up on him. Well, also, you know, Ashante's story about him spending all 27 and a half years in prison because of a crime that he committed whenever he was younger. But this last few months, we had our grandson, his grandson, to come and stay with us. You know, he had the same DNA as Ashante. He was his grandson. He was by his only child, his daughter. But physically, he had it. But spiritually, he was far from it. We tried to teach him, and we tried to show him which way to go. In the end, we had to send him home. Ashante was out of town, and he broke out the window, a storm window, a hurricane window that was bolted in and sealed in. He broke it out, and he was doing drugs, and the evidence was all outside. I remember coming home because we were in Pennsylvania, where Ashante was awarded by the United Nations some degrees, and one was in hospitality. One was in humanities. And, you know, one was because of him changing his life and helping so many other people. But we couldn't reach his grandson to that effect. But I knew that I had to get him out of there before Shante came, because that would be enough to send my husband back to prison. You know, and we went to his families, to Shantae's family, to our family in Chicago for Thanksgiving. And when we were there, we were talking. And one thing I said, you know, God gave Ashante to me. He gave me to Ashante, and he gave Ashante to me. As his wife, it's my duty to make sure that nothing ever affects him that I can stop, that would cause him to get off the path. And it's his duty to do the same with me, to cause him to get off the path that God put in our lives for us to achieve. What does this have to do with DNA? Well, we have 2 DNAs. You know, you think that you teach your children right and they will always do the right things. Or you teach your children bad. You ever seen someone that the parents did everything for God, and then you see their children that turns the opposite? And you say, wow, what happened to them? And we want to say, hey, because they were so busy doing for other people, they didn't have time to do for their children. That's not true. Because they have to make their own choices of how they're going to serve God. Have you ever seen parents that was so evil and bad, and then they have a child that serves God and does right, and you say, wow, look at God touch their life. Look how God changed that situation. Today I would like to tell of a couple of sons in the Bible and fathers in the Bible, good and bad fathers that had good or bad sons, and the same, good or bad sons that had good or bad fathers. One of the most emotional subjects and the closest to our hearts is the sons and fathers. Parents have much invested in their children, and they occupy an important part of our being. We spend about 18 years of our lives providing for and having our children as a primary focus. They are most of our hopes, aspirations, and dreams. We would gladly give our lives for our children. Our love for them is so deep and profound. Indeed, children represent a great challenge and responsibility. Children are represented in the Bible as a blessing and delight. They generally represent us and continue our seed after we cease the activities of this world. There are many false notions regarding children. Not only are there beliefs, but they are also such that often add to a heartache and grief sometimes associated with children. These beliefs are rampant within and without the Lord's church for all types of people. We should observe some Bible truths about children and also challenge some of the false beliefs by considering some godly sons and ungodly fathers, and some ungodly sons and godly fathers. Does it appear that I have made a mistake in my wording and grouping? Should it have only been godly sons to godly fathers? Ungodly sons to ungodly fathers? Many believe that children absolutely are what they are taught and what they see as a role model. The Bible does emphasize teach a child in a way they should go. But the Bible also teaches free moral agency. We make our own choices, and we do it at a young age. An example is when you tell a child, don't touch something, and they run over when you're not looking, and they touch it, and then they say, hot. They understand what hot is then. But they made that choice. And then you, as a parent, if they're young and they touch a couple of years old, you're angry at yourself that you would turn your head for just that moment for them to touch it. First, I would like to start with godly sons and ungodly fathers. To the surprise and astonishment of many, the Bible presents a scenario of godly sons and ungodly fathers. If children simply reflected their training without activity, participation, choice, or personal contribution, this scenario would be present all the time. Josiah, the son of Ammon, is an example of godly sons and ungodly fathers. 2 Kings, Ashante, 2 Kings 22:1. Josiah stands out in Bible history as one of the most impotent kings in Judah. Josiah was 8 years old when he began his reign. Josiah was unusually righteous and godly man. Josiah addressed idolatry and made sweeping reforms. But Josiah's grandfather and his father, though, were infamously wicked. Ashante, do you have it?
Mm-hmm. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. His mother's name was Jediah, daughter of Abadiah. She was from Borzharth. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and walked in all of the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left. In the 18th year of his reign, King Josiah sent the secretary, Sephrath, son of Azallah, the son of Meshuethlam, to the temple of the Lord. He said, "Go up to Hilkiah, the high priest, and have him get ready the money that has been brought into the temple of the Lord, which the doorkeepers have collected from the people. Have them entrusted to men appointed to supervise the work on the temple, and have these men pay the workers who repair the temple of the Lord, the carpenters, the builders, the masons. Also have them purchase timber and dress stone to repair the temple. But they need not account for the money entrusted to them, because they are acting faithfully."
Okay. That's one. Now, if you know Josiah did things to please the Lord. Almost like sometimes our children do things just to please us, but they don't do it because that's what's in their heart. But Josiah did what was in his heart. Can you imagine being his father and grandfather and looking and seeing what he's doing? And you're like, where did that come from? Why is he doing that? I told him to be strong and wicked. Wherever they'll listen to whatever he says and do whatever he says, he should make them bow down to him. And instead, he's teaching them to bow down to God.
Yes.
And he's setting an example. Can you imagine being the son and hearing your father say, "You're a disgrace because this is not what I taught you"? Also, Hezekiah was a godly son of a wicked father. Hezekiah was the second righteous king to reign over Judah. We read of his reign in 2 Kings 18. Hezekiah was a great and godly man. However, as spiritually great as Hezekiah was, his father Ahaz, A-H-A-Z, Ahaz was ungodly. Ashante.
2 Kings 18. In the 3rd year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah, daughter of Zechariah, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. He removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made, for up in the time the Israelites had been burning incense to it. It was called Neheshtuntan. Hezekiah turned to the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He said he held fast to the Lord and did not cease to follow him. He kept the commands of the Lord had given Moses, and the Lord was with him. He was successful in whatever he undertook. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. From watchtower to fortified city, he defeated the Philistines as far as Gaza and its territory.
The Bible records the facts and deeds of Asa, the son of Abijam. 2 Chronicles 12:16. Asa was Judah's first righteous king. The amazing matter is how Asa was so godly while his father Abijam was so wicked. Second Chronicles 12:16.
After Rehoboam's position as king was established and he had become strong, he and all Israel with him abandoned the law of the Lord because they had been unfaithful to the Lord. Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem in the 5th year of King Rehoboam with 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen, and the innumerable troops of Libyans, Sukkites, and Cushites that came with him from Egypt. He captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. Then the prophet Shemaiah came to Rehoboam and to the borders of Judah who had assembled in Jerusalem.
Read 1 Kings 15.
Oh, okay.
8.
I'm reading the wrong one?
No, I put the wrong one down.
Okay.
I'm sorry, y'all.
It's all good.
1 Kings 15:8. The reason I did kings and sons is because we are kings and daughters of the high king.
That's right.
And we have to look at ourselves as kings and daughters.
Yes.
Not just anyone, because when we
You did good.
got saved, when we came to Christ, we were grafted in. Even though we're not Jews, we are grafted in, we are adopted.
Hallelujah.
So we became
Yeah.
part of the kingdom.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're kings and daughters of the Most High God.
Hallelujah.
Which way do we sway? Do we sway in God? Do we sway towards the things that He has placed inside of us to achieve and to do? Because it's not about us, it's about Him. When God looks at us, does he say that we're wicked or that we're good? When the time comes, I want to come in front of the Lord and King, and I want him to say, good and faithful servant.
Yes.
You know, part of serving is serving. Even a king serves as a ruler. Ashante?
And Abijah rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And Asa, his son, succeeded him as king. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Asa became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem 41 years. His grandmother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom, and did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. He expelled the male shrine prostitutes from the land and got rid of the idols his fathers had made. He even deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother, because she had made a repulsive Asherah pole. Asa cut the pole down and burned it in the Kingdom Valley. Although he did not remove the high places, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. He brought into the temple of the Lord the silver and gold and the articles that he and his father had dedicated.
Okay. King Saul became one of the saddest records and examples of tormented failure. But Saul had a godly son, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to turn to that because most people know the story of Saul. You know, when David slayed the giant, he was promised a kingdom. And it should have been handed down to Jonathan because that was the king's son. Because Saul was the first king of Israel. The Israelites begged for a king, and God said, let me be your king. They said, no, we want a king. Everybody else has a king. Give us a king. Give us a king. He said, okay, you want a king? Then he looked around and he saw Saul. At that time, Saul's heart was right. He loved the people and he did right by the people. But see, once he got into power, he started thinking for himself and started going to what God said. And God even sent a prophet to rebuke him and tell him, because you did not follow what God said, that you'll be tormented. Jonathan was right in the eyes of God. And he made a truce or a pact with David. When his daddy was trying to kill David, he would tell David, hey, Dad's going to come to this side. You need to stay away from there. Dad's going to do this. And he was almost like the little tattletale to David because he made a truce with David. And because of that, God honored him. And he was placed as a godly son. It had nothing to do with the father. It had to do with the son. It had to do with God's chosen people.
Amen.
Now, we're going to talk about ungodly sons and godly fathers. About the time some are prepared about to accept the concept of godly sons and ungodly fathers, we shall inject the more and ungodly sons of godly father, perhaps a more challenging scenario. Regarding Asa, we read, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord, his God, like David his father. Jonathan was literally the father of Ahaz, A-H-A-Z, but made his son to pass through the fire according to ambitions of the heathen. And he sacrificed burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. The wicked behavior of Ahaz is in sharp contrast to the godly life of his father Jonathan. We read this of Jonathan, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. You could find that, Ashante? 2 Kings 16, 2 through 4.
In the 17th year of Pekah of Remaliah, Abaz, son of Jorham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. Unlike David, his father, he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, his God. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel and even sacrificed his son in the fire, following the detestable ways of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He offered sacrifice and burned incense at the high places, on the hilltops, and under every spreading tree.
Okay. I don't know exactly how to say this next one, but when I was doing the research, it's Manasseh, Manasseh, was one of the most wicked men mentioned in the Bible. And yet his father was the godly Hezekiah. 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 Has gone down in history as probably being the worst king to ever reign over Judah. 2 Kings 21, 1 through 7. The wicked deeds of him are both aggressive and repulsive, to the point that being would think that surely he had to have had a terrible childhood that prompted and nurtured this. However, it would be difficult to read of many righteous fathers.
Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 55 years. His mother's name was Hephzibah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the detestable practices of the nations of the Lord that the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places. His father, Hezekiah, had destroyed. He also erected altars to Baal and made an Ashereth pole, as Ahab, king of Israel, had done. He bowed down to all of the starry hosts and worshipped them. He built altars in the temple of the Lord, of which the Lord had said in Jerusalem, I will put my name in both courts of the temple of the Lord. He built altars to all the starry hosts. He sacrificed his own son in the fire, practiced sorcery and divination, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of the Lord, provoking him to anger.
A more righteous prophet and judge than Samuel is not seen in the Bible. And yet, Samuel had two of the most wicked sons, Joel and Abijah. Joel and Abijah did the unthinkable by taking bribes and perverting justice. 1 Samuel 8, 2 through 5. Notwithstanding, the vicious natures of Samuel is not questioned or marred, because Samuel was a righteous man in the eyes of God. In fact, Samuel was a prophet in the house of God. And he had 2 sons that were not. Also, another ungodly son of a godly father, Esau. And Isaac. Esau sold his birthright, which resulted in harsh consequences. However, Isaac is constantly presented as a spiritual stable opposite. The fact of the matter is that are most ungodly sons of godly fathers than ungodly fathers that have godly sons. Why did I say this today? It's not to say that our children are going to be bad or turn out bad or be godly or ungodly. We all have a choice to make. We all have DNA. We all have DNA. Did I mess it up? And God gives us a choice that we have to decide. When I was doing this, I was thinking about my life whenever I was growing up. My father was Pentecostal and my mom was Mormon. I got to choose where I went while my father was alive. After my father died, my mom made us become Mormon. And she moved us to an all-Mormon community. With that, later on I got excommunicated from my family. In other words, I was kicked out, told I didn't ever exist, even though, as you can see, I do exist. So the DNA of the Mormons was stripped from me because of the choice that I made. There's many choices we've made in our life, right or wrong, regardless. Regardless if it's right or wrong, if it's good or bad, there's consequences. You don't believe me? Go to the prison and see. Of all the ones that say, yeah, I did it, that's innocent people there. It shows innocent people in the Bible. Look at Joseph in the Bible whenever he was accused of raping Potiphar's wife or trying to rape Potiphar's wife. He was innocent, but that was part of his DNA that put him together where he could become second in command.
Right.
Each one of us has a destiny. Which DNA do we carry? Do we carry the DNA of our King and Savior? Because the Bible says that if we endure to the end, we shall be saved. What does that mean? That means that just because I say, Lord, Lord, I may not go to heaven. It means that we have to work and we have to build up our bodies just like you eat. You've got to get the Word. When you rest in God. When you get your power, you do it through speaking in tongues. That gives you the power to prevail. When you're weak, your brother or sister in Christ comes to you and helps you. They uplift your hands. You don't know how many times I've had a bad day And there's many people in this room that's called me Linda, Nora, Shannon, James, Ashante, Maria, Libby, has called me and said, and that's just some of the ones that's called and said, hey, you've been in my heart. Or hey, I love you. Sometimes that makes a difference in what you're going through. It's just, I love you. Nothing else. Well, I've been thinking of you. I just wanted to say, hey. You know, my daughter, everybody here, or just about everybody here knows my daughter. You know, she's pregnant now. Praise God. I'm fixing to be a grandbaby. I'm jumping up and down. I'm happy. She's claiming twin girls. I'm claiming twin girls too. I'm believing. You know, when she was younger, our house burned up. And it came wintertime. And we were here. And I didn't have any money. And she needed a coat. And I said, just wait, because I would get a pension from my husband that died, and that's how I would do. And I didn't have any money at that time. And I just want to say, this is how DNA works. Sometimes we take our DNA and it's physically DNA that goes inside, but also other people help give the DNA to help build us and grow us and show us the right way. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I didn't have any money to get a jacket. And we went to Walmart. And we were in Walmart, and my daughter disappeared with James Wilkinson. And I kept saying, I told Shante, I said, where did Tanya go? And he said, oh, Tanya will be back in a minute. Next thing I know is James comes and sits down. I said, where's Tanya? Oh, she's taking care of something for me. She's going to tell me whenever it's time. A few minutes later, he gets up, he goes over there. When she comes back, she's putting a new jacket on. It was cold outside, and he bought her a new jacket because hers had burned up in the house while we were helping people with Katrina. Our house burnt down to the ground. To this day, my daughter talks about that jacket and how he didn't even know her, but he did for her. How many people have you touched that you really don't know? Or has touched you that really don't know you? We just went to Pennsylvania, and we had 2 different flights on two different airlines. So my first flight out of here was to Atlanta. And I was sitting beside of a lady, and she was nervous. And I said, you okay? She said, I'm a little nervous. I don't really like flying. I said, oh, me neither. So we were sitting by each other. And I said, we're going to encourage each other. And I told her who I was, and I gave her my card. And I said, where are you going? And she said she was going to Alabama to spend some time with her family. And she said that she had just fought breast cancer. And she was a breast cancer survivor. I said, me too. I said, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I found out I had breast cancer. I'm a breast cancer survivor too. We had the same DNA. And she said that, I told her I wanted to connect her with Sarah here, Sarah James, Holiday James, Sarah Holiday James, or Sarah James Holiday. I don't know which way it goes. But I told her I wanted to connect her because she helps. she has that same DNA. She helps the women who's went through breast cancer. She's a breast cancer survivor as well. And so we talked for a little while. When we got ready to get off the plane, she said, I can go to my next flight and not be nervous because God put you in there. But we prayed before she got on the plane. We prayed. And I prayed for me too because I don't like to fly. And I'm claiming that I go all over the world, so God has to change that DNA. And each time I get on a plane, I say, God, thank you. I don't get sick. I don't this. So God's been putting me back by the bathroom. And I said, thank you, Lord. That way if I have to get up and go to the bathroom, I don't feel uncomfortable or I don't get dizzy or whatever walking back there. The reason I'm saying this is because each one of us has a special DNA. That DNA was placed inside of us by Christ. And we have a father. Some people's father is money. You ever seen anybody chase after money? My mother died, and she was so, before she died, some of my family tried to put her in a nursing home, and she was so distraught because all they wanted was her money. And I said, Mama, that's what you created, because that's what you taught them. And that's what they believed that existed, was money. You have some people, anger. That's their daddy. They walk around, they always have a chip on their shoulder. You know those people, the ones that you say, how you doing? Wow. What do you want?
Right.
The ones that you hate to talk to because you know whenever you get through talking to them, you feel bad on a good day. Then you have the ones that walk around with sorrow. They have such pain in their heart from life that their whole daddy is nothing but sorrow. That's where they exist. Then you have people that use other people and they're users. You know what I'm talking about. The ones that, hey, do it for me. But you're doing it for him, but you're doing it for me. Do it my way. You know what I'm talking about. We all had those in our life. Then you have the ones that's really heartfelt, that really love you. The ones that you know, if it came down to it, they'd be the ones to stand arm in arm with you whenever the hurricane and tornadoes come where you won't get blown away. Those are the heartfelt ones. And the ones that their dad is your dad. Who's your daddy? They're your daddy. Child, just like you are. Then you have the ones that no matter when you see them, you say, how you doing? They say, fantastic. It's like, how can you be fantastic? We talked about this yesterday because whenever I go into hunt, whenever we go into any prison, they know Ashante. People know Ashante. They know me too. But they know Ashante. And it gives them hope because he's been where they're at now. He's been there. And one of them says, how's Ashante? I said, oh, he's fantastic. And they laugh. And I said, you know, I didn't really understand that. I said, one day, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I was really upset. And I went to visit my brother, and I was telling Ashante before then, I said, you know, I don't like this, I don't like that. And Ashante said, it's all fantastic, it's all good, just smile, it's all. And I said, how can he say that? So when I go and see my brother, I said, Ashante always say, everything's fantastic. I can't believe that, everything ain't fake. And I was just like that, I was like, and my brother said, he looked up at the TV screen, and there was a car broke down on the side of the road. And it was on the news, because all the traffic was backed up. And my brother said, hey. He said, you see that car on the side of the road right there? And I said, yeah. I said, I know they're having a bad day. He said, I would like to be in that car. He said, because one bad day out there beats a good day in here. And I said, he said, now, before I got ready to leave, he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm fantastic." So we really need to look at it another way. And if you know that we serve the same daddy, he's our daddy. Everybody in here, I know, in some form, and we all serve the same daddy. But you know, we know people out there that don't serve the same daddy, or don't even know our daddy. And we have to teach them and show them and love them. You know, we need to love them where they are, but not leave them where they are. We need to teach them who our daddy is and what DNA we have. You know, I'm fixing to end it with this. We went to the family reunion. We went to the Thanksgiving. And some of the family I had never met before. As many times as I've been up there and I've met the family, there was some I hadn't met. It was really on Ashante's daughter's mother's side of the family. Me and Ashante's ex-wife, his daughter's mom, we sat down and we talked and I prayed for her. And she says, "I know if you pray for me, it's going to get answered because God answers your prayers. Because you prayed for me over and over and over again. And I've got healed, I've got delivered, I've got set free. I've had things supernaturally to help it." She said, "Things that happen like out of the blue." I said, "That's supernatural." And she said, so some of the family was there, and there was this little baby, this little boy baby. He kept reaching for me. And so I got him, and I was holding him, and his daddy came, and he said, "Wow." He said, "It looks like you could be his grandmother because he looks just like you." He said, "You have the same complexion, but also you have the same glow of God."
Come on.
Amen. That right there, because the whole time I was like, "God, I don't have time to work on my sermon. What am I going to do? You gave me some scripture. How's it going to tie in?" And you know how God tells us, and we don't want to hear that. Just be at peace. It's okay. We don't want to hear that because we're still like, it's got to get done this way. But when he said that, all the peace came, and I was like, okay, it's all going to be okay. And one thing that God told me when we was coming back, I told Ashanti, I said, "I'm going to have to work on my sermon. And God said, "You think I would make you look stupid?"
That's right.
Will we make our children look stupid? That's what he said. Would you make your children look stupid and call yourself a good parent? Or would we encourage our children to be the best that they can be and know that we're a good parent? Well, I just have a question. Who's your daddy? And also, which child are you? Because we have a good daddy. Or we're the good children. Or we're the wicked children. That's it.
Thank